Okay guys, so welcome to the Elite M Plus meeting. So as I said, tonight is going to be a brief overview of what our Elite Mythic Plus team is going to be all about and what it involves. So hopefully you guys are keen to push some high keys next expansion. As I said, it's something we're going to get a bit more competitive in, so if this is something that you're into, we're going to get into that now. So basically, like we covered in the core raid meeting, we're just going to cover over our basic guild vision values. So foremost of all, Inspired is a community-based guild. So basically we're a bunch of friends from all different parts of the world in Australia, basically looking to push content in all different forms and ways. One of those ways is through raiding. As you know, next expansion we're going to be forming a cutting edge core raid team with the goal of striving for cutting edge each year, so hopefully that will be successful. But as I said, tonight the main focus will be is having a thriving competitive M Plus community where players push the highest keys in the server and help others in the guild. So basically what we're aiming for is to hopefully be the top guild for M Plus. So getting the highest keys done in Frostmourne, that will be our main goal for this next expansion. So getting a group of players together, working to push the keys each week as far as they can, using all different strategies, top tier strategies, all that sort of stuff, working with the roles and classes that we got. Another thing we're trying to build on throughout Shadowlands, and hopefully maybe next expansion we might have a proper team for this, but the PvP side of things, we are still working on making this a main part of the guild. At the moment we're still at the early days with this. We've only got a couple of players that are really interested in this at the moment, but hopefully, as I said, maybe sometime next expansion we can really start to look deeply into this and getting more higher rated players and all that, and get, you know, the highest level for Frostmourne and that eventually as well. And obviously the biggest thing I think that's most important about this guild is the social community aspects of the guild bonding events. I will be mentioning soon that our 1 year anniversary as a guild will be coming up, and I will be running a special event for that. I'm just waiting for any expansion launch dates to make sure that doesn't conflict, but if it doesn't, I'll be planning on running something pretty special for that day. For those who don't know, December 4th is our 1 year anniversary date, so if you're free that date, please make that date free. Obviously, as well as a social community, we also do legacy achievements, so meta, defining achievements, so doing the raids, doing the dungeons, all that sort of stuff. Being part of the M Plus community, I assume you guys will be interested in doing that sort of stuff, getting all the mounts, getting all that sort of thing, collecting all those transmogs and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that's what the guild's all about. Anyway, we're going to move on. So, we're going to talk about now our Elite Mythic Plus team vision. So, obviously the number one thing that I spoke about on the first slide was basically pushing the highest keys in the server. So, unlike raiding, where clearing the raid is kind of your main goal, for us as the Elite M Plus team, our main goal is to be pretty much the most successful team in M Plus on the server. So, trying to beat everyone else in Frostmourne, beating the highest keys as high as we can. So we need to grab 5 players that are really keen to do this, that work well together and are able to be flexible enough for us that we can push the highest level keys there is in game. So those who are really keen on doing this is what we're looking for. That's what I'm trying to push for at the moment. And as I said, we need dedicated players who want to look through these dungeons in and out and want to get their characters to a level that allows us to do that. Obviously, another big thing with M Plus especially, now without set dates and times like raiding normally does, being reliable and professional, so having the right mindset as well is essential when it comes to M Plus teams. Also being available is a big thing too. If you're someone that's only available for raid nights and then nothing else, you're going to be a very bad M Plus player. So basically, you want to find a time with your team throughout the week that you can be available to make time with them so you can push those keys each and every week. So that's something we're going to try and do. Obviously, again, this is probably more important, as being a very bonded team, because with raiding you've got a big group of 20 people. Sometimes you don't know all of them, but you know some of them pretty well. But with an M Plus team, you're going to know these guys pretty much inside and out. You're going to be working with 4 people directly, pretty much for the whole tier. Other than maybe 1 or 2 people come in and out, you're going to pretty much have the same group of people that whole way through. So having good, connection with your teammates and all that is not only, something that you should strive for, but something you should be looking forward to, because as I said, obviously, having that connection with that group of people is going to give you guys, good memories to look back on and stuff as well. Obviously as well, similar to the raid team, you guys that are in the M Plus team, you guys are going to be a pretty integral part of the guild, if not even more in some aspects at times. You'll get a lot of guildies that will ask, you know, can you help me with my keys, or can you help me with my M+ and all that sort of stuff. I'm hoping you guys, you know, when you've done all your progression and you've pushed your keys for the week, you know, you find some time for some other people in the guild who need support and stuff at times. Obviously, I'm not expecting people to carry people for free, but obviously, you know, if there's some people that need assistance and you're free and you've got nothing better to do, I'd love if you guys help out with that a bit. At the moment, in regards to things like carry runs and stuff like that, I'm not really looking into that right now. This is something as your own M+ team you can sort out yourselves if that's something you're looking into in the future. That's something I'm happy for you guys to run in your own space. But basically, yeah, that's kind of the main thing. But when it comes to guildies and stuff like that, I don't want to be selling carries to them or anything like that. You just, you know, you want to help out, you do. If you don't, you don't. But as I said, the preference would be to help out. Anyway, we're going to go through now basically all the Mythic Plus roles that there are for each team. Now, there's a lot of different things here, and that's basically because you've got a group of 5 players, and pretty much all of these things really need to be covered. So, obviously, first off, let's go over the easy basic parts. So, firstly, a tank, obviously. All tanks at the moment are roughly even in M+, with the exception of sometimes CH. But there's been all different types, they're going up and down, all expansions, so really the tank doesn't matter too much. The biggest significant thing about choosing a tank is the utility it offers. So for example, a monk offers the debuff, the demon hunter offers the debuff, warrior gives you a buff, paladin has bop and all that sort of stuff. So it depends on what you're looking for in that sort of area. Now for healers, for those who pick healer, one thing you need to keep in mind is having a strong DPS throughput. You don't want to be just a healer that just heals and does nothing else. You want to be contributing to the damage as much as even a tank would sometimes in certain aspects, while keeping the rest of the team alive. Like tanks, they all offer different types of utility. Obviously the biggest one that sticks out is Resto Druid with their battle res and all that sort of stuff, and obviously being able to turn into bear form to survive attacks, cat form to do lots of damage, so Disc Priest having another, you know, stam buff, all those sorts of things come in handy. Now, the one thing that sticks out here, there's actually a class on here, and unfortunately, with the removal of Season 4 and BFA, Rogue is basically mandatory for every group to have. So, basically, for those who do not have a Rogue in their team, you're at a huge disadvantage, because unless your group can one-shot a group, basically, you're never going to compete against a Rogue that can just skip trash packs immediately. So, pretty much every group's going to have at least one of these. For those guys that M+ is your main content, I would be considering this as everyone having one of these as an alt, basically, because this is going to be something that everyone's going to have in their group at some point or another. Now, another significant thing that every group is going to need, especially with this expansion specifically, is Covenant composition. So, as you may or may not know, all Covenants give players a buff to the party in 2 out of 8 of the dungeons that belong in the Chosen's Covenant zone. So, for example, if you pick Venthyr, all the Venthyr dungeons, you'll give a boost to all your group in the dungeon because you're a Venthyr player. So basically, if, say for example, we've got Venthyr, Necrolords, and Kyrian, we don't have anyone from the other one, based from Night Fae, all your Night Fae dungeons you will run, you'll be at a huge disadvantage. Like, these buffs are huge, so not having someone from the Covenant from the dungeon you're in is going to be significant. So just keep that in mind when we're forming our groups, that you have all the Covenants covered, because without it, you'll be pretty much pigeonholed into 6 out of 8 dungeons or 4 out of 8 dungeons if you don't have specific Covenants for specific dungeons in your group. Now, another big factor that wasn't as prominent in BFA is heroism. So in BFA, drums was 25%. It's been nerfed all the way down to 15%. So this is basically half of what a hunter, shaman, and mage will do. So basically what this means is we always need a hunter, shaman, and mage in the group, unless they're all so bad that all the other classes just destroy them or something. Because basically drums is useless now. So you need to have a hero class in each of your groups. So these are mandatory to have. Another thing to have as well that's pretty mandatory is a battle res class, so a Death Knight, Druid, or Warlock. There is an engineer item in the game at the moment. It does backfire though, so it's not a great battle res. I do recommend in each group though to have at least one engineer for someone that doesn't have a battle res, just in case the battle reser is the person that dies. So say for example your Resto Druid dies, having that engineer to back you up and battle res that Druid or that Warlock or that Death Knight could save your group in a fight. The last thing as well to obviously keep in mind is party buffs and debuffs. So
as you'll see in a minute, I'm going to give you some example teams basically. You want to have debuffs or buffs based on what group composition you have. So obviously, for example, if all your group is physical damage, you want to obviously run your monk, your warrior for your physical buffs and debuffs, so you can do extra damage. Alright, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to scroll over to this page. So this is 2 examples of 5-man teams we could run next expansion. So as you can see on the first side, we've got Brewmaster Monk for the physical debuff, which helps the Rogue, the Warrior and the Marksman Hunter. They all are physical damage users. The Resto Druid is our Battle Reser, also Necrolord, so that covers that. The Rogue is always the one I would recommend having engineering, because he offers other than skips, he doesn't offer any other sorts of utilities, so that would be a good thing to have for that. And then for Warrior, I've got the Warrior buff and Rallying Cry, and then the Marksmanship Hunter with Hero and Misdirect. Obviously, the huge disadvantage of playing Marksman Hunter with Hero is you're going to have 14 seconds downtime, so hopefully there's a better option for that. The only reason we're running Marksman Hunter is it's the only hero class that can run Venthyr well. So, as I said before, Covenants is a huge thing in Shadowlands, so not having one Covenant in your 5-man team will basically mean that 2 of your dungeons are pointless to do. So, yeah, you want to be able to push any of the dungeons you can. Obviously as well, the second team, now you might see this as a cookie cutter team if you guys have been watching M+ videos, the Demon Hunter Disc Priest / Resto Druid, Rogue, Warlock and Mage. This is kind of like our main team that I can see pushing the highest keys at the moment, especially the way things are, with range being the top DPS at the moment. So basically the reason you run Demon Hunter with Warlock and Mage is obviously all magic damage, and then the Mage covers your hero, your Warlock gives you Battle Res, Hellstones, all that sort of shit. So yeah, as you can see guys, this is kind of what we'll be running. You want to have this in mind when you're forming your teams. You don't want to run something that's not going to benefit your team in any sort of way. As I said, hopefully over the next few weeks we'll start to find out what's the best for each dungeon, or what the best teams are. But yeah, just keep all these factors in mind when selecting your teams. Now, so at the moment, what we're going to do for Shadowlands and the launch in the pre-patch is basically we're going to be doing some trial M+ dungeon runs. So through the pre-patch time, especially while there's really nothing to do at the moment, especially with no new content, what I'm going to be doing is setting some dates to try and run some people through some M+ tests. Basically what we're going to do is get a group of 5 people that are going to go together, and we're going to see how far they can push their keys. Basically what we're going to be doing with this is to see how far you can push these keys, to see how far you guys are going to go in the future. Now, unlike core rating, there isn't a limited amount of spots for this. Obviously the only limited thing is how many groups of 5 can we run at one time. So if there's 10 groups of 5 or 12 groups of 5, that's fine. But basically, we just want to see what everyone's skill ranges are, so people know what they're working with and all that sort of stuff. This is also your opportunity to kind of work around the people that you have and the people you know, to start sort of forming the bonds with the people you think are going to push the keys the highest for you, and all that sort of stuff. Another thing as well that I'd be recommending doing when Shadowlands launching is reaching max level within the first week. Now this is the same thing that we had set for the core raiders. Reason for this is basically you want to allow yourself enough time to get yourself ready for the first season. So you want to have that time to do those M0s at the first week and the second week when you've got that free time. No pressure, no M+ keys. You want to learn the dungeons inside and out. This is probably even more important than the core raiders, because the core raiders don't have access to the raid straight away. But as M+ users, you do. You have the dungeons all there, ready to go, ready to practice straight away. So you want to learn all the different pathings, you want to learn what the ads do, you want to learn what the bosses do, you want to learn which way to go in the dungeon, you want to work out if the dungeon has multiple paths or singular paths. You want to work all that stuff out before the season begins. Because if you don't have that knowledge to start off with, you're way behind the 8 ball. Obviously as well, same for raiders, endgame. You got to level up your carbon and soulbone trees. Everyone knows this by now. Hopefully you're up to date with all the systems that's going to be out in Shadowlands. Hunt for your legendaries and conduits. Now, for those who are core raiders and are planning on doing that and M+ at the same time, your legendaries and conduits may be completely different best in slots for the M+ than it is for raids. So please keep this in mind when looking at this. If you are becoming a core raider and an M+ player at the same time, you need to be careful on which one you choose. You might have to pick something that fits in the middle and covers both sides of things. Obviously completing your weeklies and dailies, and try and do that as much as possible. Make sure you try and do every M0 dungeon each week, as I said. Maybe do it more than once a week so you get the pathing, get all the mechanics. As I said, If it's your main type of content, I'd be recommending it. As I said, it's the lowest pressure time for you to learn stuff without blowing a key and stuff like that. Alright, we're going to get to the next bit. So this is obviously a similar structure that we have for the core raid, but obviously there's a few differences. So week 1 is the beginning of the season. Now, I would recommend as an M+ player is having as much time off on this week as possible. Basically, because at this stage, pushing keys is going to be at its hardest. You're going to be at your lowest geared, you're going to be at your lowest skill level, you're going to be at your lowest knowledge level. So you want to be able to do is push as many M+ keys as possible in your first week with your 5-man team, to learn the dungeons thoroughly and to learn all the affixes. There have been a lot of changes to the affixes, and obviously you want to eventually learn the new affix for the season as well. So hopefully you can push higher that week. You may not see it, but if you do, that's just going to go a long way. Now, the next thing you need to know, week 2 onwards, that's when the core raid team will be beginning heroic and mythic progression on our core raid nights on week 2. So that means our social raids will be commencing that week. So if you're not a core raider or you're not in the core raid team, this is a great opportunity for you guys to collect the raid gear you may need for your team without committing to the core raiding schedule. So basically this means, even though you're not a core raider, you've still got access to loot that you would not be able to get if you weren't raiding. So all you need to do is, if you want some of the raid loot, say there's a trinket in there that you desperately need and you can't, and you're not a core raider and you really need it, you can just join the social raids and get it through that way. So also as well, it opens up more spots in your chest, so that gives you another chance of that raid loot that you may want to get. So I would recommend coming to these if you can. Not mandatory, but it would help you out on the long run. Now, obviously, yeah, nothing else too relevant there other than that. The last thing you need to know about is the Mythic Plus Key Progression. So, similar to raiding, you need to do your homework on all the dungeons. So, reading up the details about the videos, I can post some guides and stuff that I've been seeing recently. It gives you pretty much a fast track way to read about the boss fights, read about all the ads that are important that you need to be aware of and all their mechanics and all that. As I said, the big difference between raiding is also having to deal with the trash well. Like, if you're bad at dealing with trash, you're not going to be a very good M+ player. In fact, most of the time it's the trash that's going to fuck your key, not the bosses. So you learn the bosses eventually, but you probably won't think about the ads as being important, but they are. Obviously, knowing when to skip a certain pack, or knowing when to CC a certain pack, or knowing when to kill a certain pack on a certain week. As I said, between affixes, the pathing may change, like it did with certain dungeons this expansion. So please, as I said, check out the best MDI strategies when they come up. Make sure you're keeping an eye on these things and working through it with your team, because it's going to go a long way to pushing keys further. Now, depending on how your group may function at the moment, as I said, if you're in a group with someone like me, I won't be holding hand. You'll be expected to learn these dungeons all by yourself, or spend time with your group to figure out all these things. So please don't be as I said, pull your weight when it comes to this stuff. Find out this information for yourself. Look at things online. Always keep up to date with what's going on in Raider.io and MDI and all that kind of stuff, so you can get the highest level possible. Also, as well, when it comes to farming keys, say for example you're pushing 22s and 23s, and then all of a sudden you do a 15, and you go in there and you sort of take it lightly, and all of a sudden you fail it. Like, we don't sort of want that. We want people to be able to go in there, have a bit of fun, of course, but we want people to be able to still, clear keys that are considered super easy for them, unless you're really fucking around, and then that's on you. But as I said, just keeping things obviously to a seriousness level that is enough to complete those keys. But yeah, as I said, it's a very short meeting, not much to it really. As I said, hopefully what we're going to do throughout the pre-patch is, as I said, test you guys out. We're going to be pushing keys as high as we can throughout the rest of BFA, and then when Shadowlands comes out, as I said, we'll be trying to get people through all those M0 dungeons and all that sort of stuff. Hopefully you guys have got some questions about all of these things. Post it in the meeting channel now, and what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the general social channel and discuss everything we've just seen. Thank you guys for coming to the meeting tonight, and I'll see you in the social channel in a sec.